Hi everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Create, and I want to welcome you back to our channel. And we are working on Le Romantique, which is a Graphic 45 new DCE or newly released DCE. For those of you not familiar, basically a DCE, a Deluxe Collector's Edition, is a re-release of a collection. And so when they do that, they package it slightly differently. And it comes with the designer papers and with some stickers and chipboard, so it doesn't have all the elements of a collection, just a trimmed down group of elements. And it also comes with 24 sheets instead of 16. So it's a little bit different. You don't get patterns and solids, but you get enough paper to work with, and so it's a slightly different format. So with that, I want to take a moment and share with you this wonderful letter I got from one of our viewers. And I got it over the weekend while we were at our weekend retreat. And it says, "Thanks a latte," obviously a card maker. And it says, "Dear Daphne and Julie, I received my order today. It's perfect and beautiful. Thanks so much. The corners were protected." Wow, Julie does an excellent job of making sure that everything gets to you guys in pristine condition. So many times I've gotten damaged paper. I love your tutorials. Daphne, you're the best. That would be me. Yay! Your YouTube is very clear and precise, and I have watched all of them. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Sandra Moore. So Sandra, I want to thank you for sending this along. I do get some nice comments once in a while, but this was a great surprise to get in the mail. Thank you so much. Okay, with that, I'm going to set that aside. And of course, we thank all of our viewers for tuning in and leaving comments. We appreciate it. I'm going to do something a little bit different on page 1. It's a new design, so I wanted to mock it up before I even got started, so you guys can have an idea of what I'm getting ready to do. So this is my mock-up. There's going to be a flap up and down, and then there's going to be these two doors that open to the right and to the left and then open again. And you've seen this part in some of my albums, but not this mechanism that's going to hold it in place. And then lastly, in the center of the page, there's a belly band. So we've got quite a few elements that we're going to work on, and I'm going to give you the measurements straight away. So the belly band is 9 inches by 4 inches, and you're going to score a 1/2 inch on either end. That's the belly band. Both of these flaps are going to be 4 inches wide. This is 6 3/4, and this is 4 3/4. So that's the height, 4 3/4 high, 4 inches across, 6 3/4 high, 4 inches across for these flaps. And then for these two doors, they are going to be 8.5 by 8, 8.5 by 8. And you're going to score at a 1/2 inch, and then you're going to score at 4 inches. And then when you go to fold it over on itself, you're going to find that it doesn't want to lay flat. So you're going to just keep trimming little slivers off this edge. So it's going to wind up being a little bit less than 4 inches so that it'll close and lay down flatly. And I do that trimming outside the book. So I just keep folding it over on itself, tucking it behind that hinge until I get something that looks like this, that's nice and flat. So that if it's bubbled like this and you can't get it to lay flat, you need to open it up and take another sliver off, okay? So that's the only tricky part to this setup. So now that I've kind of walked through what we're trying to accomplish, we're going to go ahead and start to lay things down on this, and we're going to work on page 1 together, okay? So the first thing you want to do is make sure your pocket orientation is correct. And as usual, what I do is I indicate what page it is, and I also like to know where my spine is. So on page 1, my spine is going to be off to the left side. All right, and I am sitting down now, trying to pull my chair around so we can get started. So the first thing I think I want to do, and have to go back and look, like I said, this is a new design, is we can go ahead and lay down our left and right flaps. And they're just going to go right to the very edge of each side. So again, this is the pocket side, this is the hinge side. We're just going to lay this down end to end. There we go. And now I'm going to use this as my guide to get my second one in. I'm going to butt it up this way and then lay it down. And I like to do it that way so that I know I don't have a gap. If I'm slightly over or under, I think I want it to go either to the outside or to the hinge and not be in the middle of my page. Okay, so I'm just checking to make sure it's going to fit on here and not be too big, and it looks good. Okay. Dry fitting is what I like to call that. Okay. Now again, so there's my left side. I'm going to push it straight in. I'm looking to line up the top and bottom so we have a nice smooth edge. And then without shifting it, that's my goal, try to get my fingers out from under it. There we go. So that is in. Okay, again, these two flaps, you need two of them, 8.5 by 8, 8.5 by 8. Score it 1/2 inch, score it 4, and trim the edge until you can fold it over on itself smoothly. Okay, so now what's going to hold these in place are two flaps, but before we put those flaps in place, we're going to go ahead and put our belly band in the middle. And the belly band is just going to be centered on the 8 by 8. Now, I did not do this, but I'm going to actually line it up on my board here and just put a little tick mark at 4 inches, which is the center. So that's my target center line, and I know this is 4 inches wide, so I'm going to put a tick mark at 2. So I'm just lining this up to this. And then I'll erase that mark. And then coming straight across, I'm going to flip it around so I can see the other edge when I install it. There we go. So that's in, so that's our nice wide belly band there. And then now we're going to apply these two pieces. And the way I've designed it is the long one is going to go on the top and the short one is going to go on the bottom. But right now there is no orientation, so even if you flipped it around, it wouldn't matter. But when you get ready to install it into your book, make sure that the long one is on the top. So I'm going to turn it around and get that edge next to me. And I'm just looking to see that this lays down, and it didn't, lays down straight with the belly band. There we go. Okay, now we're going to put the short one in on the bottom. I'm going to crank it around. All right, and so I'm going to push one corner down, and then I can pivot it until it's flush with the flap right above it. There we go. All right. So this is the way it's going to all function. Like so. And because there's a lot of bulk under it, I think I'm actually going to pull it around and burnish it, which by doing that, I'm actually going to widen that score line a little bit, so that it'll lay flat. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. You can see that it doesn't want to lay down flat because there's so much bulk here. So I'm going to hold it over and burnish it. And I'm lining it up with the sheet underneath it, the strip underneath it. Double check, make sure they're lining up here, so they'll line up on the top page as well. Okay. Okay, try that one more time. Oops, this needs to be on the outside. Okay, so by doing that, what I've done is I've actually widened that score line. And I'm going to bring it up and show it to you. Hopefully you can see it. So the score line was actually a little closer to the edge, and then by folding it back over, I've widened it slightly. It's less than a 1/16 of an inch, so the alternative is to do 2 score lines here, but I actually didn't want that much bulk, so you could do it either way. This is how I've chosen to do it, and so now everything is going to be held in place with a magnet. So let's get that in. Except I don't have any tape in here, so I'm going to have to come right back. Okay, I've got a couple of magnets ready to go here, so I'm going to put one on, where am I putting this? This is going to go like this. So the long flap is actually going to be behind. So I'm going to put one magnet here, and then I'll find the location for the second one. So the short flap is going to go over the longer flap, like so. Okay, so that's page 1. So we'll go over that real quick. So here is your 4 3/4 by 4, 6 3/4 by 4, 2 8.5 by 8. And on the 8.5 inch side, you're going to score 1/2 inch and 4 inch, and then trim to fit. And then this is 9 by 4, score 1/2 inch on both ends. That is page 1. It's also page 8. Okay, so that's that. So the next thing is we're going to start putting in some designer paper. Okay, so I've got a couple pieces of paper trimmed out. So I'm using this green, and because it's a DCE, that means everything is starts as a 12 by 12. Okay, that's going to go in like so. This is going to go in on this side. And before I get too far, okay, I just want to make sure my orientation is right. Okay, that's it. So this one's going to go over here. And in this case, I need a piece of black paper for contrast. Huh. And let me see if I can find something to use. Okay, just so you can see what my edges look like. There we go. Easier for all of us. Okay, again, this is for page 8 and 1. Page 1 and 8. I said that backwards. Okay, I'm looking for that continuous line. I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to go ahead and give that a good burnish. Okay, I don't have all the papers trimmed yet, but I have some of them trimmed out, so we're going to focus on those. And then I may step away and add some more. That's going to go like so. And then this is going to go here. I think one of these... they're actually both the same. Nope. That's it. Okay, so let's get this top long one in first. That's one of my favorite patterns in the collection. Okay, and then this is gonna go up. Like so. Okay, when it's all closed, it's going to look like this. And I've got these pieces that are left from trimming this out. So I'm going to use these 3 pieces on the inside of these 2 flaps. And I may trim this down so that I can have a little bit of orange on either side. I haven't decided yet, so give me a second and I'll be right back. I forgot my ink. Okay, I've got my ink and I think I'm ready to go. Now we're going to flip it around and work on this flap. I'll go ahead and close that so it's not bumping into anything. And then for this flap, and make sure you're following the orientation. So now it's upside down, so this should be upside down as well. I'm going to go ahead and add the smaller piece first. And then if I need to trim this down, it'll be easier to handle than trying to trim something that's 2 inches wide. So now because we've got to fold these 2 pieces in and this has to come over the top, make sure you're leaving enough room right here next to your hinge so that it doesn't interfere when you're trying to close it, because we've got yet another designer paper that goes there before we're finished. Okay. So I'm leaving a little more room than a 1/16 of an inch so that I can easily close it with no interference, even after I get this additional designer paper in. Okay, now we're ready to add this. And the way I want to install this is I do want a little bit of the white peeking out, so I'm going to take a sliver off. And there it is. Okay, good. Ink that edge real quick. Okay. So that's finished. That's how those 2 look. Okay, so let's go ahead and close these and we can get a good look at what it's going to look like in its closed finished position. There it is. Okay, so that is what page 2 looks like in its closed position. Now we need to work on getting coordinating paper on the rest of these panels. Okay, so I've selected this pattern paper to go across the belly band and I've trimmed it, so I'm going to ink it and then we'll lay this one down. And for those of you that are new, I'll go over what I'm using. I'm using what's called a powder puff ink pad. We sell these in our shop, and I really like them. It's by a company called Quick Quotes. And I typically only use the browns, but they come in lots of different colors, and I highly recommend them. If you're a scrapper, they're awesome because you can drop them and with very little transfer. I also don't have trouble keeping it off my hands. Where with some of the pigment inks, they're quite messy. And also you need an applicator when you're using pigment inks. But if you're using the Quick Quotes, the pad itself is a sponge, so you can actually use it as the applicator. So now I'm just trying to decide the orientation. I think I like it this way best. It's really not directional, but I like the pattern going this way. Okay, that's in. I'm going to use my little paper here to show you. So there's our belly band on both sides. I'm going to burnish that into place. Okay, and then I'm going to keep the background very simple. So I've just trimmed out these two pieces, and they're going to get slid slightly under. So you don't need a whole piece to go across, since the belly band covers the center. And I trimmed these out. They're about 3 inches a piece, but they happen to be scraps off other sheets. So it doesn't have to be precise, just so long as it slides under the belly band and comes out to your hinge area. Okay, I'm going to open up both flaps. Okay, just making sure it still closes, and it does. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, very good. Okay, so that's in. Now, time to look for our panels over here. I'm going to go ahead and close these since all this is covered. I don't want to keep bumping into my flaps. So now we're going to work on the left and right hand side. So if you recall, the outside is this green, which I'll want to pull back in one way or another. I just don't know which way yet. Okay, here's the two pieces I've decided to trim out for the first part of the flat. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this and get it down. Use my contrast paper to help me see my edges a little bit better. There we go. And then I trimmed this in half. So I'm trying to line up my edges again. Or I thought I did. There it goes. So I trimmed, this was one piece and I split it in half, so I actually want to lay it down that way. It's not that big of a deal because the edges don't marry up, but it's just a detail. Okay, that's in, so now I'm going to scoot this over and we'll do this side. Okay, so we're coming right along. Okay, now we still have a couple more spaces to cover. So I'm going to burnish this all into place. I'm going to go ahead and close this again so it's not bumping into things. I wanted to open it when I was making this decision because these flaps will be open when you lay out the spread. Okay, now we still need a couple more things, so hold tight. Okay, I've trimmed out the papers that I like for these two sides, and so what I've done is I found this pattern, which I really like, and we're going to put that right here, and then these butterflies are going to go on the very outside, and that's going to be our center spread when we're done. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Took me a little fussing to come up with the patterns I like, but I like it. So I'm going to start by laying the black ones down, then we'll come back and lay the butterflies down. And then we will be done with page 1. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to lay our butterflies down. And I'm just double checking the fit because I definitely want to make sure it'll close. And yeah. Okay, so again, I can't stress enough, when you do the second score line in your 8.5 by 8, you're going to need to trim this side. If you don't trim it, it's not going to fold over on itself, especially after you get all the designer papers in. So test it and retest it and test it and retest it before you install it and start moving on with your paper. And that also means that this designer paper is not interchangeable, because this one's going to be a little bit slimmer. Okay, I'm going to open this. We're going to walk through, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm planning to put in to, I keep doing that backwards. That's going to be like that. So I'm going to have a designer element here. I just don't know what it is right off the top of my head. But I've trimmed out and matted some of the cut aparts, but then we also have some chipboard pieces. This would be a good place for a chipboard piece, and then it'll help you remember that this is a pull down. But anyway, this is page 1 and it's completed. So this opens down, this opens up, these will open out like so. Now what I'm going to do with these 2 strips is I'm actually going to mat a 7x7 piece of black or piece of cream cardstock, and the 2 edges are going to be the stripe, so that's what's going to peek out. There'll be a different designer paper in the center, but when it's all done, there'll be a, like I said, maybe a little bit bigger than 7x7, but I'll give you the dimensions when I build it. And then you'll see the stripe sticking out, and you can pull this in or out. I didn't want to use a whole stripe paper there. I just wanted to put a trim on each side. So in its opened, completely open state, it's going to look like this. And then, like I said, this will be a slide through. So that is the end. And it's going to take a little training, so be patient with your paper. That is the end of page 1. Thanks, everyone. This is Daphne from Scrap and Create. I'll be back soon with page 2.